Hello, my name is Chris Smith, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about why it's important to stop drug driving. And first thing I'm going to start off with is one of my slides, and here it is. So obviously of a vehicle and a school bus accident, and the slide is basically covering a statistic that was done by the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration that talks about how 22% of people that they interviewed in the last year admitted to being under some sort of intoxicant, whether it was over-the-counter drugs, an illicit drug, or in some cases even alcohol. But the drug was the statistic, the survey was specifically done on drugs themselves and not alcohol. So 22% of the people that took the survey admitted to being under the influence of one of those intoxicants in the past year, and then after that got behind the wheel of a vehicle and started driving. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it's important to stop it. It's obviously going on, and a lot of people, ask, how does this affect me? And honestly, it affects everybody, and anyone that gets on the road and is driving around, whether it's you, your kids, so anyone on the roadways in the United States is affected by this, and other countries as well, but specifically here in the States. And it's just one of those things that, to me, I'm passionate about, and I'd like to definitely try and enlighten people on the dangers that are involved in it. So some of the things I'll talk about are some misperceptions. One of the big things is marijuana, and a lot of people think that marijuana is not a harmful drug and that it doesn't affect people. Another thing is how law enforcement reacts to this type of thing, and how legislation affects our ability to perform duties when it comes to enforcing laws, and when it pertains to drug drivers and not just drunk drivers. And we'll start off with the marijuana. And again, a lot of people ask, how is this, how is marijuana a harmful drug? And a lot of people are shocked to understand that it really is. And here's my next slide. After that, we go to what we have here is a cannabis leaf. And what this slide is talking about is that there was a study done recently that showed even a minuscule amount of marijuana, or THC, which is the intoxicant inside of marijuana, in your system can impair your abilities to perform regular motor skills, fine functions, fine motor skills. It affects your ability to do that. It affects your reaction time greatly, and basically all these things are key abilities you need to have while you're operating a vehicle. Just like if you were driving under the influence of alcohol, your judgment is impaired, and it is with marijuana as well. Now granted, there still needs to be a lot more testing and studying done by scientists to, I guess, quantify how badly or how greatly the marijuana affects the system and how it affects your ability to perform in situations like driving. But it's still something that's important to be cognizant of, that there are studies that show it does affect you, and it's not this harmless drug that a lot of people make it out to be. It still is a drug. Now, with that said, as a law enforcement officer even, I do understand that a lot of people use it for medicinal purposes, and that the fact that it is used, you can kind of consider it along the lines of alcohol. I mean, obviously we know it's harmful to the system, but it begs to question, is this something that the individual should be able to make that choice for themselves, and whether or not they want to introduce that into their systems. The biggest concern comes from, in my perspective, comes from, are those people now getting on the road driving or putting others at risk by doing these actions? And then you can say the same thing about alcohol. So in my opinion, I kind of see marijuana along the lines of alcohol and how it affects the system. And Colorado is one of the newest states that's legalized marijuana, and what that does for law enforcement officers is it definitely makes it harder for us to enforce laws that we were used to enforcing in the past. In the past, it was easy to pull someone over if you saw some sort of drug paraphernalia, or if you've been through a controlled burn and you can identify the smell of marijuana that's burned, you can, you had your probable cause to take things to the next level then. And a lot of people got arrested and or even cited for having marijuana in their possession or driving under the influence based on that. But since then, it's become a lot more controversial as far as states like Colorado that have legalized it, because now law enforcement officers are a little bit more hesitant to take action against things like marijuana because the legislation is unclear and it's in a lot of cases contradictory, and it makes it hard for us to identify what exactly we can charge someone with and whether or not it's even going to stand up, because again, it's new, and when it goes through the justice system, there's so many loopholes and so many different aspects that make it hard to get something to stick. But as we're talking about marijuana, that's just it's just one illicit drug out of hundreds that people are introducing themselves to, and it's still getting behind the wheels of vehicles. Other drugs, even over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs, affect the way people operate vehicles, and they don't take that into consideration a lot of the time prior to getting behind the wheel. And that's one of the scariest facts about this, is that people don't realize what they're doing to their system and how it affects other people. Another statistic I have here is 18% of drivers killed tested positive for at least one illicit drug, and this is back in 2008. And again, that's a pretty high number. That's almost 20% of these operators tested positive for at least one illicit drug. And I mean, so we're talking about, in a lot of cases, marijuana, but even harder stuff than that: heroin, methamphetamines, just, I mean, crazy drugs that people shouldn't be taking, and they are, and they're getting behind the wheels, and they're putting you and I at risk, and they're putting our kids at risk as well. Another study showed that 11.4% in 2010 involved a drug driver, and these are just statistics of people that got caught doing it. It's not everyone. It's not people that skated by or have been doing it for years and haven't been caught. These are people that have got caught in the fact that they died. They caught, and there was a fatal accident, and the driver of that vehicle was under the influence of a drug. And again, these statistics are excluding alcohol, so obviously the numbers are far greater when you include alcohol. And a lot of times they're on more than one illicit drug. A lot of the alcohol-involved fatalities involve marijuana, for instance. Almost all of them do. So there's a lot of reason to not get behind the wheel and be under the influence of some sort of drug, whether it's a prescription or not. And to me, I've had friends, I've had family that have been affected by this, and personally as a law enforcement officer, I've also responded to it, and it's a horrible thing to see and be a part of. And what I'm going to ask of you all is, to consider all this. Everyone has their point of view, especially when it comes to things that are kind of in a gray area right now, like marijuana. But I plead with you guys to look out for yourselves, look out for your friends and family. If you see someone that, maybe did do some sort of illicit drug, or, they're on a prescription medication that affects their ability to operate a vehicle, talk to them, plead with them, beg them not to get behind the wheel, because you never know when that's going to affect someone close to you. And, as, myself as a Christian, I feel it's, my job to protect others around me, whether they're family or not. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this subject. So, in conclusion, here's my final slide. And it says, don't let this be you. And it shows a vehicle that's pretty mangled, and most likely the occupants of that vehicle didn't survive based on the severity of the damage. And that's just something to think about, every day before you leave for work, or you leave to go do something simple like to go to the grocery store. Just keep in mind that there's other drivers out there that could be impaired, and I think all of us can do our part if, like I said, just please talk to people, let them know that there are dangers involved with it, and to not do it in the future. Thank you.